All right, so welcome folks to the Hughes Moves Spotlight. Today's edition, we have Mr. Colin Donohoo. How do you pronounce your last name?
Yeah, Donohoo.
Oh yeah,
Yep.
I got it. Cool.
Donohoo.
It's a fun looking last name. So I
Got a
wanted
lot
to
of them,
make sure.
you know.
Colin is I think Dr. Edith, he's a RevInMo trainer. Dr. Edith, the founder and creator of RevInMo, would probably call him a master trainer too. When I suggested that term to Alex in the last Hughes Moves Spotlight, he was not a fan. I don't know about you. You're like,
I'm just
whatever.
a coach. I'm just
Yeah,
a coach.
man.
I don't think I'm a master of anything yet. I haven't quite
Yeah,
got there.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I
Yeah,
appreciate it. I appreciate the accolade, but I've just put in some years. That's all.
yep, yep. So, um, to give the viewers a little bit of a background, I met Colin obviously through Revolution in Motion. The first time was when it was him and Edith and Alex and another trainer. They came to Bastille and they introduced us to Revolution in Motion, which is a movement practice that I focus on in my business. It's one of my mainstays, honestly. And it's a whole nother world. We're gonna get into that. But I want to hear it from the perspective of Colin, right? So Colin and I, we've maintained contact. We've hung out a couple times. I've been to the studio in LA. We've sat down, we've had lunches and dinners together. He's a good buddy of mine. So welcome, Colin.
Thanks for having me. Excited
Yeah,
to be here and chop it up for a little bit here.
absolutely. So to start it off, I want to hear about your story. How did you get to where you are now? Like what did that look like?
Yeah. I guess, the quick explanation is that movement's always been, kind of encouraged in my family. It was something we always did as a family, moving together on summer vacations and things like that. So sports were a big thing. And even through college, I didn't necessarily play high level collegiate athletics, but I stayed active with intramurals and different challenges for myself. And so I was playing adult soccer, which has kind of been my mainstay as far as sports go, and got a slide tackle injury in 2007, broke my ankle. And this was like right at the end of college, going into my professional career. And I'd gone to school for physical education, teaching body stuff, So um, I was trying to decide which route I wanted to take. And I'm here in LA, so physical education in the LA Unified School District didn't sound utterly appealing with 60 students per class and no funding and things like that. So I chose to teach people in a different arena, which was just the gym setting. And so dove into personal training in big box gyms over the last 10 plus years, and worked for LA Fitness, worked for Equinox. And somewhere along the way, in my recovery after that injury, was introduced to Revolution in Motion by another trainer at Equinox. And that was the that was the little bit of the rabbit hole I needed to see to dive in. And I pretty much dove in head first for the last 10 years to some degree. I've had subtle deviations, but
Hmm.
as you can see, that's not just placed there for this, it's there all the time. So
Hmm.
Revolution Motion's a mainstay, pretty much day in, day out, week in, week out. So even if I fall away from it, I use it with my clients, I use it with myself.
Hmm.
And that's a quick nitty gritty. So
Oh, I want the long nitty gritty. We have time. Let's. I
yeah,
mean, yeah, I got questions for you, but if you want to go ahead.
well, if anything I said there spurred a question, or I can keep diving a little deeper into those segments that I just delivered. But
Well, let's ask you this. What was the first thing that you noticed that kind of like was that aha moment with RevInMo? The first time you experienced it, like what was that like? What did you notice?
um, so as I got into moving with people, I just it was kind of movement focused and making sure that people could move a weight around their body and move their body in a dynamic way. And usually for most people, that was just like figuring out how to move in a cross body manner. And this
Mm-hmm.
was something I just started to work on. And then when I got to Equinox, the trainer that introduced it to me, his name's Jeff. He just kind of pulled me aside. He's like, "Hey, the way you coach people, the way you train with people, I think you'd be really interested in this movement system." And I saw him, for a couple of weeks, bringing the ball in, bringing the bells into the gym, because we didn't have that equipment at Equinox.
Mhm.
And so I was already intrigued by what he was doing. You know, it caught my eye too. And I'm generally a pretty playful individual when it comes to movement. I just like to try things. So as soon as I started playing around with some of the moves, I instantly could see where it was like, it was almost like that foundation block that I hadn't ever been taught, you know, and I could see where I had little movement deficiencies that weren't necessarily nagging me because I was only 23 or so when I learned, 24 maybe. Um, but I could feel where like, okay, that pattern isn't something that feels good in the body. And this pattern that I'm working towards with the exercises that Jeff was showing me, those felt good. And with the exception of the very first time I did the routine with him, which I was looking at him the whole time. So I came up afterwards, I was like, is my neck supposed to hurt? And he was like, no, it's because you were looking at me the whole time. And I wasn't letting my head relax, you know? So as soon as I did it the second time, I felt this sensation that I'd never really felt from a workout before. You know, I felt the fatigue and I felt the pump and those things, but this was like I don't know, it was different. It was just different. It was connected, and it felt really efficient. Just as I started to continue diving into Revolution Motion and also my activities, so being able to cross check it with running or soccer or surfing, you know, things that I'm already used to, but now the variable of you know change was Revolution in Motion, and as I practiced and got deeper into it, I could feel the crossover, and so I think it was just kind of a combination of the enjoyment of doing something new and also that pretty distinct sensation within the first month or two, like, oh, there's some carryover that's directly, I'm feeling it right away. And I guess with old strength training programs with running and stuff like that, I never really felt the direct crossover from like the weight room workouts to running faster. With this, as soon as I went through a couple sequences and I started to get my feet functioning, you know, a little more efficiently and connected to the rest of my body, that directly transferred to my activities and my awareness. So I think that was kind of that big token that I latched onto within the first, you know, couple months of being exposed to the Revolution in Motion system. And that was enough to keep me keep me coming back. So
Absolutely. Yeah, 100, I mean 100%. I mean as you go through it, I can just imagine my first experiences. I'm like, "Yep, you hit all the boxes." I did want to mention one thing, uh not interview related. Was able to hear everything, but your video is frozen.
oh,
Yeah.
or am I just sitting still?
It said that my connection isn't stable. Maybe start and stop your video again, see what happens.
Yeah, let's see here. Is it gone now?
It's gone now.
Okay.
Language of movement. Well, we're definitely gonna talk about that too, huh?
All right.
There you are.
Back? Am
Yeah,
I
we're
live?
good. We are live. We're great.
Okay. I'm
Cool.
gonna Yeah, I'm still figuring out this new computer.
No worries. No, no worries. I mean, we're able to hear everything clearly, so that's great.
Okay, cool.
Um, one thing, I mean, man, you said a lot of great stuff. One of the things I wanna touch on first is what you mentioned, that cross body, where that it's, you know, when we impart any sort of training, or if we go through any sort of non-specialized workout program, exercise program, I think the biggest lack is that cross body, right? In my experience, and I mention this a lot in a lot of videos I put out, you know, I trained CrossFit for 7 years. And ultimately, when I started learning about something like the fascial system and then Revolution in Motion, and coincidentally at the same time, right, I took into account planes of movement, right? And so when we think about sit-ups, pull-ups, push-ups, squats, deadlifts, snatches, like any sort of barbell movement, it's in the sagittal plane, forward and back, forward and back, forward and back. And if we go to the gym, anytime we go and work out in the gym, it's always going to be in that sagittal plane. And we never, ever, barely like train that cross body type of movement, right? Like you never under load get that, you know, get the twisting movements into the rotational, into the medial lateral, like things like that. And
Bros.
I think that is a mainstay, like one of the hallmarks of many within Revolution in Motion, right? And then because that directly relates to sports. Like we train in the sagittal motion, and then we go out and it's like, okay, let's go play football or soccer where we have to cut, but we can't, right? And you're like, what happened? Maybe I should train harder. Nah, and that's not really it.
Yeah, just to clarify, and I don't know what'll come through on the recording, but you glitched on my end. So to hear
Oh,
you
perfect.
in the weight training room, a lot of the movements just generally are in that sagittal plane,
Yeah.
but Revolution in Motion really exposes people to these
Yeah.
other planes of movement, and also kind of how these planes of movement get combined in the
Hmm.
fascial system, right? Because it's not just sagittal, it's
Hmm.
not just lateral. There's usually some rotational component
Hmm.
to those, even if it is truly forward. This moving
Hmm.
forward a little bit,
Hmm.
right? That's what walking is, and that's that cross body kind of spiral that goes through the line. So
Hmm.
I think that was really, because again, from schooling, it's sagittal, transverse, lateral, frontal plane, and they really dissect the body into these different planes where it's like, no, the matrix is more complex than that.
Hmm.
And I think understanding the fascial system and then seeing how revolution in motion, often those exercises are multiplanar. We're
Hmm.
moving forward and back, but there's some dynamic motion. Or when we're on our lateral plane and side toss, we can add a rotational element to it. So
Hmm.
I think the freedom in the system to explore all planes of movement is really unlike a lot of other systems. You
Hmm.
know, there's a couple others that get you off axis and spinning and
They're
rolling and rotating, but
they're trying. Oh, they're don't get me wrong. They are, I since March I've gone through like 3 Beachbody programs, right? And they're trying it like, and they're doing a decent job at it. I have my own qualms,
when even
but
outside the fitness community, if you take an activity like Brazilian jiu-jitsu or something like
yeah,
that, like that's
yeah,
off axis, applying
yeah.
tension and force in different angles. So an activity like that might be similar where you're getting exposure and sensory input in all these different ways.
Hmm.
And I think, like you said, just to reframe it back to that initial comment, is the weight room doesn't necessarily promote the creativity to explore those other planes of movement, because a
Hmm.
lot of the machines are very linear,
Hmm.
and a lot of the common knowledge amongst gym goers is not to explore these other planes. One of my favorite things to do with a new client is to take them through a lunge matrix. When
Mm.
they say they can't lunge, or they're afraid of lunging because it bothers their knee, I'm like, well, what about a lateral lunge? What about a transverse lunge? What about an opposite side lateral
Hmm.
lunge? And they're like, oh, I never tried this before, and that doesn't bother my knee at all.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
exploring those opposite, not those opposite, but those alternate ranges of motion is something that Revolution Motion, I think, thrives in.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I want to I want to take a step back because, there might be some people who are watching this and saying, what in the hell are they talking about? Um, which is also the best. It's
Story
like,
of my life.
one of the hallmark, yeah, one of the hallmark, I'm going to say hallmark a lot. One of the most important questions that might be the most difficult to answer. What is, in your definition, in your experience, what is revolution in motion?
Hmm. Good question.
Yeah,
We used
exactly. That's
we used to debate this for a long time about how
why.
to like best articulate this answer. And I know Edith has her like verbatim answer, but it always comes out differently every time. So I'm just going to say what comes to
I
mind right
want I
now.
want your answer. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's the best way I can say it is the movement system that really challenges you to reconnect to your own physical body, and the way your body connects to your environment. So how you in turn react and connect to the things happening around you. And that can be physical things, or as we know, it goes often deeper than movement when people stick with it for long
Hmm.
enough. It comes down to how we mentally approach the day and all sorts of different things. So yeah, it's a movement system that helps you to reconnect to your body and reconnect to the environment, in a complex and novel way. So it's going to be new. It's going to challenge you in some awkward way. That's one of my favorite responses from clients is, oh, that was awkward. And yeah, so I think the short and skinny of it, yeah, just a movement system that's going to really allow you to reconnect.
Hmm. I think I mean, that's, how can you disagree with that? I mean, it hits all the beats too. One thing that comes to mind when you mention that too is that, like, we are we're not in an environment. We are a product of our environment.
Mm.
right? And we ought to be able to connect with that environment as much as in as many ways as possible, right? It's the opposite version of that too. You know, if I want to get onto soapboxes, here's my phone, just, you know, all day long. If you saw my phone or not, you get what I'm saying, right? Getting us out of this body awareness of where we are in space and time, because ultimately we're doing ourselves a disservice if we do that, right? Tangibly speaking, we can talk. I mean, it's great when we talk about sports, but just even having a better quality of life throughout the day, right? That is integral, and that's kind of your definition. That's at least what came to me. It kind of spoke to me a little bit.
Yeah, I think that, you know, it's great to refer back to athletics, and I tend to do that because I have a very athletic background in my experience. But when you start to, you know, I was just hanging out with my best friend and his family a little bit, and just seeing, you know, what it takes to be a parent, and being able to be
Mm,
aware of what's happening around them and their environment and what their kids are doing and what's happening, you know. And I think, again, it's always so tough to sell people on this, but time and time again, when I really get into a consistent practice, and I fall in and out of it from, you know, month to month, year to year, depending on life, but it's always there. But when I'm really dialed in, it's like there's almost like a seventh sense. And,
mm,
you know, I'll brush something and I'll feel it tipping over because of how hard I hit the object, and I sense that, and I grab it. Or you know, and time and time again, pardon if that was too loud. Um, yeah, I always go back to this, but I was at the grocery store. You know, Erewhon here in LA. You've
mhm.
been there.
Yeah.
I was carrying my lunch, and usually it comes in like a couple different containers. So I was kind of juggling these things, and I was by the little countertop where you grab forks and napkins. I think this guy dropped his keys or something, but with my arms all full, I grabbed his keys, and he looked at me and I looked at him. He's like, "How'd you do that?" And I was like, "I don't know." You know, but it's just that awareness. And through awareness, you're able to react more accurately, faster,
Mhm,
with more intention, you know. And I think those things are something that's kind of lost in the normal gym life or in the normal fitness life, is
mhm,
truly an ability to train ourselves to function at a higher level. And a lot of times, you know, people don't know what they don't know. So if they've
mhm,
never experienced it, and we start kind of talking about this idea of again, flow state, reaching that optimal performance level, and they've never felt it or they're not aware of it, it's like, oh, I don't know what that benefit is or what that
mhm,
is going to feel like. So they don't look into it. So again, we've always had that issue with a little bit of getting people to kind of put their foot in the water,
mhm,
because our on the surface, our results from the training system that we use, Revolution Motion, is not the same as the gym or the spin studio or things
mhm.
like that. So I forgot what the initial question was. I've rambled really long,
It
so I'm
doesn't
just
matter. That was
you can
great.
ask another question.
It wasn't even a question. You just kind of expanded on. We got somewhere. I mean,
Yeah.
it even makes you remind. It reminds me of this idea that Dr. Edith had. It was a year or two ago that she wanted to do like an immersive retreat. I remember
Hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
And like to go to a different location. You know, I'm just off the top of my head, I'm thinking about somewhere warm and sunny on a beach, you know, or in the jungle, right? But that kind of idea of using that movement system all day or like a couple hours a day and then going out and just experiencing the environment.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
that alone, like phew,
A
it gives
dream.
me chills. It just makes me feel like I want to. I mean, I don't know if you can see outside my window. It is pouring. It's been pouring all day long.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
I should go outside and experience it. Who knows?
Hey, you
And
know,
not get sick.
I think the slant board can take, or the Bosu can definitely tolerate some rain. Go out there and do
Yeah,
some plyometrics in the
yeah,
rain.
yeah, absolutely.
No, I've
So,
had a vision for a long time of like a line. You know, usually we train in circles, you know, and stuff like that. But I've seen kind of like a half semicircle, like overlooking this just beach vista,
mm,
and
mm,
everyone's doing like their slant board drills, and we're all doing stuff. So I've had this vision for a long time. So
nice.
it'll happen
Oh, yes.
once travel free.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm definitely going to be there, if not participating, but also training for sure.
Yeah.
Um, so that being said, so were working at Equinox. I think you're still doing online services, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm technically I'm still with Equinox, but
Mm-hmm.
obviously the gyms are closed and we're doing some virtual stuff like that. So a lot
Mm-hmm.
of virtual training right now. I still have one or two private clients that I meet with outdoor sessions, which is really my dream, is to move with people in nature and try to
Mm-hmm.
get them connected to the world,
Mm-hmm.
not just an environment, but our world.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. And just seeing now that I kind of know this space, I was thrust into it in 2020,
Mm-hmm.
having worked in gyms for so long and being as you know, Revolution Motion is a little different than the normal gym workout. So I'm always like that odd guy over in the corner.
Mm-hmm.
Now that, the internet space allows for anything, I don't feel that awkward anymore bringing what I bring to the space when I am not going against the grain in a gym.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the one running around barefoot. Everyone else has got the fancy Nike sneakers on, especially here in LA.
Yeah.
So I feel a little more at home on the internet in a weird way, and also just working with people, privately. So it's fun.
Yeah. Real quick, your video is frozen again.
Hmm.
Just, I mean, I think our quick hack is just
Yeah.
turning it on and back
Let's
on.
just do that.
So
Bam.
we're good. So let's take pre-COVID times. You were in the gym, right, training people at Equinox. What did that incorporation look like of starting to introduce Rev to some of the people, and if they got into it, like what did that whole process look like? How can you incorporate it into a gym type protocol?
Hmm. Yeah, so it took a little while because again, initially I was kind of swept away with Revolution Motion. So that was pretty much all I did with a majority of my clients. And I would convince them that it was the route to go for what they needed. And a lot of the clients, it probably was. I don't know how much getting some of the clients that I was given in the Equinox, or that I, came across, connected with, however you want to say it, would have benefited from bench pressing and back squatting and those types of exercises, because I generally was partnered with people who had more specific needs, a lot of surgeries in the past, or very special, neurological situations, things that needed to kind of be catered to in a different way. And Revolution Motion kind of gave me an in to work with those people. So I was almost like the non-physical physical therapist in the
Mm-hmm.
gym, So I found a space in between, like, the high performance 2 a day guy in the gym and the person who wanted to move again and didn't want to go to physical therapy because they didn't have an injury,
Mm-hmm.
but wasn't ready for the high performance stuff. So there's this weird, like, I just call them the people that are waiting at the bus stop, like they're waiting for the
Nice.
bus to come pick them up. And I was the bus driver that came on by and was like, hey, I can take you where you need to go. And so that was really how I kind of found my niche. And then as the years progressed, I really learned, like, Revolution Motion helps people get strong in a very specific kind of way, not in the kind of traditional way where it's like, we're going to add weight to the bar today, we're going to add weight to the bar in 2 weeks, and we'll be stronger. I always called it like a more connected strength.
Mm-hmm.
As we get your body to work in a more interconnected way, you actually find your true strength without having to lift a really heavy weight.
Mm-hmm.
It's because everything's working more efficiently. So you are then in turn stronger. Once we reach that weird threshold or somewhere around that where people are starting to understand their body, I found it very beneficial to add in kind of more non-traditional strength training. So dynamic movements with a load, those types of things. So I found some combination for each client that incorporated a little bit of Revolution Motion as kind of the restorative work, and then a coinciding strength training routine, because again, in the fitness gym, a lot of people want that pump, so I had to meet them where they were at as well.
Mm-hmm.
For some clients, I still only train primarily Revolution in Motion on given days, and then we have just 1 or 2 days throughout the week where we lift and heavy object,
Mm-hmm.
because some of my clients don't like really lifting too much, but I get heavy weight in their hand when I can, so some combination of those two always bleeds in when I'm in the gym. And then privately, similar concept. I take an account to what they want to do, and then we progress from there. So I'm working with a figure skater right now who's
Oh
62
wow.
years old.
Ha.
And it's super amazing just to watch. She works with another trainer for a lot of the strength stuff. So I get to
Mm-hmm.
work with her primarily Revolution in Motion and just movement based things to get her feeling more capable on the ice. And it's been amazing to see, you know, again, I think you've probably seen it in your practice, how
Mm-hmm.
age regardless,
Mm-hmm.
starting point regardless, revolution in motion works. You know, as
Mm-hmm.
long as people are willing to kind of give it a try and get over that hump of learning something new, once they start to reconnect to their body, you know, she's felt how certain moves in our system directly correlate to a spin or a position she's trying to find on the ice.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, time and time again, that just continues to come through no matter the format. So
I mean, I would definitely love to work with a 62-year-old figure skater. Are you kidding me? That would be amazing.
it's so
I
much fun.
mean, just to see, and that takes into account too, like what are somebody's goals, right? And how can we meet them where they're at? It's like it's not like everybody has this benchmark, like we're going to be able to lift X amount and run a mile at X amount of time. I mean, maybe those are your goals. Don't get me wrong, and RevInMo can achieve those, but it's like the spectrum of people that we can work with. Like I have someone for a whole hour. I probably put him through 5 moves today, and we like took the time. We did frog rock for probably 15 minutes. It was amazing because he's like, I have a pelvic floor. I thought that was just a female thing. Like, nope.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like we are going to improve that, that connection again with you and your body with the environment, and then you can use that and integrate that any way you want to. I personally, for me, I've started to explore with doing my Rev program, and then I go deliberate, like specifically work out for 15 minutes. So do those squats and push-ups and things like that. But it's kind of like that secondary, that back end integration. Like now we've got there, let's do something with it because that's just going to propel you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I used to kind of get worried. This was probably like a couple years in because I could feel my body changing. And I was like, I would always check in with Edith. I'm like, is it safe to go play? Like, is my body still like calibrating? And she's like, no, you're good. And like, I can't think of one time where I'd, you know, done a lot of revolution motion and gone to play and potentially injured myself. You know, there was one time I remember where I rolled my ankle, but I didn't roll my ankle and I actually
Mm-hmm.
off of
Mm-hmm.
it and beat the guy on the soccer field. You know, so there's been time and time again where it allows you almost, you know, again, you do a strong day of weights and you're in a good program to get stronger in the off season. But on those days where you hit a solid weight day, you know, 1 day, 2 days after, sometimes three, depending on if you overdid it a little bit, like you're really not able to move too much sometimes, you know. And again, I know there's ways to strength train, but a lot of people search for that excessive dom sensation
Mm.
after a weight training day. And I always personally felt like that deterred me from then going and moving and playing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas when I finish a RevInMo session, it's like, let's go. Like
Yeah.
now I'm ready, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And the exercise of the revolution motion was fun and beneficial as well, but it almost prepared me for that next thing that I want
Mm-hmm.
to do. Whereas after the weights, it's almost like, okay, now you got to go recover, let that
Mm-hmm.
rebuild, and then you're ready. You know, so
Yeah.
just the time difference there was
Yeah.
an interesting token to note.
I I remember so many times just sitting on the couch for like 3 hours after a workout, like eating and sleeping. I'm like, I don't want to do anything for the rest of the day. Like, don't my brother's telling me to help move his stuff, and I'm like, don't touch me. I'm recovering.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right?
So, and I
Yeah.
guess, you know, I've always tried to have the conversation with people is like, is that sensation really beneficial for you? Or is it more a psychological, you know, confirmation that you did some good work? And I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of people don't really like that sensation, but they like the confirmation that they feel they did something.
Mm-hmm.
And that, to me, again, I'm not going to take that away from anybody because I get it. You know, having that little sore pump afterwards is like, oh yeah, I pushed myself a little bit today. But I think for a large population of people, i.e., all the people that don't go to gyms, you know, because again, gym population is pretty small.
Mm-hmm.
That might not appeal to them. You know, and again, I think revolution motion has the potential to make you sore,
Mm-hmm.
but usually in areas that you've never felt before. So it's
Mm-hmm.
always kind of like an interesting sore. It's like, oh, I've never felt that muscle back there, and it's usually not debilitating.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually like a little just reminder that, hey, I did something different with my body. So I always appreciated that. I've never been crushed from a
Mm-hmm.
revolution emotion workout. It's always just been, yeah, like energy drain, maybe, you know, kind of like you were saying, like I need to go eat, but my body's never felt broken down.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of makes me wonder. And again, a lot of this is making me reflect off of everything that I've gone through in March, right? Trying to stay healthy, staying indoors as much as I can, and implementing like a lot of the beach body workouts. And a lot of them, they varied from an hour down to 20 minutes. But I
Mm,
think the common theme amongst all of them was, let's work you into the ground,
mhm.
right? Or it's like every time if I try to do a program and I was like 2 months in out of a 3 month program, man, I was almost like gritting my teeth, like, man, I just don't have the energy to do this again and again and again, 5 days in a row. Like, and this is for me, where I don't have that 9 to 5 job, but my girlfriend did and still
Yeah.
does, right?
Mhm.
And she tried to follow along with me, and she lasted maybe 3 weeks because she was still waking up at 3:30 in the morning to go for her shift for the day. And it's like, that's not, so my overall my theme with that, what I'm getting to, is like the sustainability, right? I mean, if you got to work out, get your sweat on. But what is, again, the kind of your idea? It's like, what's the maybe like what's the point? What is your goal, right? What are you trying to achieve with that? Is it feeling better, or is it just kind of that mental checklist of like, I worked out, so therefore I'm healthy? But 3 months down the road, are you really going to be healthy if you're burnt out in all aspects of your life?
Yeah, and I I'll be the first to admit I am not David Goggins. For those who know who David Goggins is,
I don't even know, but I'm gonna laugh. Why
you don't know who
no?
he is. Okay, he
No.
has a book called Can't Hurt Me, and
Okay.
it's really just about like pushing yourself past that barrier.
Mm,
So
mm,
when he hears me saying that I've never been sore from a workout very often, he would say that I haven't pushed myself, um,
there are a lot of schools of
nearly
thought.
enough.
Yeah.
And I think there is some middle ground for everybody,
Hmm.
about like, okay, we have more in the tank, but again, I think for a lot of people to enjoy life, they don't have to do two-a-days. They don't have to struggle and push their body past these pain thresholds that really is probably your body giving you maybe a little warning signal that like, hey, just take a touch off. You can get there, but maybe not there today.
Hmm.
And I think again, a lot of people, due to their disconnection from their body, I'm just going to go back to that,
Hmm.
aren't aware of those signals. And it's like, oh, okay, that might not be safe today, but if I expose it again tomorrow or the next day, like a lot of the revolution in motion maneuvers, for a lot of people, the very first couple times, daunting, or oh, I don't know about that one. I'm not too comfortable with that. Okay, well,
Hmm.
let's find an entry point that gets you
Hmm.
into it.
Hmm.
With a back barbell squat, the only thing you can really change is kind of the load. You can change the range of motion as well, depending on what you're doing. But a lot of people, it's like an all or nothing squat. Knees have to, or hips and knees have to be in line, or it doesn't count.
Hmm.
And it's like, well, okay, let's play with some of these variables. So again, I think there are ways to program and train clients in a weight room setting that can, like when we add in transverse planes and all these different planes, and we add in some variability, but the revolution motion system just kind of has it all intertwined, so you don't have to really think about it because the variance is there.
Hmm.
um, I keep forgetting what the exercise or what the question that we're talking about is.
So don't worry about it. It's great. I've got my notes. You don't need to keep on to hold
Perfect,
on to yours.
perfect, this is good. I like this. I can just lab for no reason.
Right. So, I mean, I think a lot of this is actually, at any point in time, this is a great segue because I want to ask you about your business,
Hmm,
language of movement, right?
yeah,
Is it
yeah, yeah.
can I call it a business, or what is it right now?
I hope so. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Obviously, with this current time we're in, the gyms have been closed now for months. I think we opened for a week in July, but we've basically been closed since March 16th. And the gym, I'm the type that kind of puts all my eggs in one basket type of thing. So I go all in. So I was pretty committed with Equinox for the last. I think I had a small hiatus. I went to a little private studio here in LA for about 2 years, but other than that, it's been about 10 plus years with Equinox
Wow.
and another source of income somehow. So I've been toying around with doing my own thing for a long time, since even like 2016. I had an idea for conscious body design. It was going to be my consulting health company, and I was going to kind of play off my initials, which are CBD. But at the
Mm.
time, I kind of hesitated because CBD was becoming this really big thing. And I wasn't sure I wanted to necessarily attach myself to that. Now, hindsight, I probably should have, because I would have made a killing, but
Yeah.
it's all right. Either way, I've been thinking about this for a while, and I just didn't know how to kind of create the system. I didn't want to drive around LA going from house to house to train people. I knew that for sure. But the online format wasn't really too known for many people. I'd done some Zoom sessions personally, just with people who weren't in LA. And I benefited from them just as far as the experience and seeing like, oh, this is a medium that works. It's not ideal, but it still works. And the people that I worked with had some benefit from it as well. So I'd already kind of been exposed to virtual training, but then gym shut down and boom, you kind of have to. So a few of my clients were on board right away. I would say 75% of them were not. So my business took a huge hit,
Mm-hmm.
which gave me time to build. So I've got my logo now, I've got a website, and I've got a business kind of up and running with a few different services. So, virtual training, private training is definitely, kind of a mainstay, but I'm looking to kind of cap that at a specific number of sessions and then do more just online engagement. So that's where my live streaming comes into play. Because financially, I've always like money is great. Don't get me wrong. I'd like to be wealthy, but like, what is wealth? Is it money, or is it just experiences in life? Who knows? So I've always been kind of in this weird space where like, especially in LA, I see people charging $250 an hour for training
Mm-hmm.
and hurting people. And I'm like, well,
Mm-hmm.
shit, like I should be able to charge that much, but I just can't bring myself to charge that much. So I'm like somewhere in the middle of the LA spectrum of pay, for personal training, but I also want to make sure that I reach out to people for free. And
Mm-hmm.
so Twitch is the place where people can come find me for free. So I live
Oh,
stream,
nice.
virtual session, private sessions, online coaching. I also do heart math certification coaching or trainer coaching,
Wow.
which is a whole nother
Dude, you're
component,
right up my alley.
to the
Wow.
language of movement, right? So it's kind of a play on words when we get to stuff outside of the movement realm, but mindset, emotional resilience, those types of things are something that has kind of just worked its way into my movement coaching already.
Mm-hmm.
So now, earlier this year in March, I went through a heart math certification. So I'm looking to add that in as I continue to build my business. So I can really talk to people about shifting their
Mm-hmm.
emotional state, which is movement, and talking is language, so play on words there, but it all kind of fell into a beautiful little cohesive formula. So,
Mm-hmm.
now I'm to the point in this business development as a, new entrepreneur where I'm looking to just kind of like streamline things, make everything funnel together a
Mm-hmm.
little better. And so far it's going pretty well. So I have as you do, you were mentioning to me before we started recording here, but I have a few big goals that I'm looking to kind of get cranking on between now and the new year, and then kind of see where those go in the new year. So looking to build a program, very similar to
Mm-hmm.
you, kind of with the physical education background that I have, I really feel there's a huge need for the physical education component amongst adults and
Mm-hmm.
young adults and elders, grandparents, things like that. So that's kind of the space I'm hoping to fill, is almost like a short, semester curriculum. So it's going to be probably a month or two, maybe 3 at the most. But I really highlight restorative movement, strength-based movements, and skill movements. And so just kind of covering, what I feel are revolution motion is definitely going to be in there, mainly in the restorative section.
Mm-hmm.
I love to expose people to dance and sports. So that's going to be kind of the final section, the skill-based stuff. And in the middle, just, for strength for me, as I mentioned, it's never really been kind of a major player in the game other than kind of body weight training. But recently I've just been introduced to the concept of kind of explaining tension and the sensation of tension in the body.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, again, there's a lot of education when it comes, or a lot of potential for education when it comes to working with people and getting them to understand what they're feeling in their body.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you have this experience, but when you ask somebody, how did that feel? They go, uh, okay, well, where did you feel that? Well, I felt it here and here. Okay. When they're in that, try to create a little more understanding for themselves so that they can articulate it. So then a trainer or coach can really understand and get a better communication with them about what the experience is for them. Because that's really, someone put it in a great frame for me where it's like, we just are experience guides, right? When they come into our space, we're going to take them through an experience pertaining to movement usually, but sometimes it's even just dialogue. And that experience they have is probably what's changing their physiology more than what we're doing with them, you know? And like you, I've had numerous sessions where a client comes in, we just frog rock, and then we talk, and then we frog rock, and then we talk, and they leave and they're like, wow, my back hasn't felt this free in months, years, you know? So, yeah, I think I'm going to stop talking again.
Do you know what the first question was that I asked you?
Nope. About my business.
Yeah, there you go. Awesome. That is honestly, I'm so glad that you were able to talk about this, because I mean, honestly, I didn't know a lot about what you did. That's so cool that you're able to do live streaming, that you're going through Twitch. You got all these things going on. And like the potential outreach. Like if people aren't jumping on and checking out your website, what's the website name?
TheLanguageOfMovement.com.
Yeah, thelanguageofmovement.com. If you haven't checked it out by now, obviously you need to. And especially heart math. I don't have a heart math certification. I've done a lot of biofeedback and mind body medicine.
Yeah.
I didn't get any certifications because it's covered under naturopathic medicine, but
Nice.
my main emphasis was with heart rate variability, among other parameters. And heart math has a program on heart rate variability.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not really, we don't have as much time as I'd like to talk about it, but
It'll be our next one.
We'll exactly
all about heart HRV, because that's a
oh
whole
my
nother,
gosh.
yeah, man, that's a whole nother, we can geek out on that.
I had another patient where it's like I started implementing guided diaphragmatic paced breathing and revolution in motion. Not kind of like as a combo, but like an aside, both lifestyle habits. This guy has essential hypertension, right? Which is kind of like the medical doctor's way of saying, I don't know why you have it. Here's 3 medications, you know? And it's like a lot of times people are on those medications and their numbers don't change. And so they have hypertension, like 150s over 90s, like something that really needs to be addressed. And I think I've been working with this person for a couple weeks, and they're like, yeah, I measured my blood pressure today and it's 120 over 80 when I was standing. And when I was laying down, it was 110 over like 75. And I'm like, oh, really? So essential hypertension, huh?
Yeah.
And I think in my mind, I made the connection. But if we can impart something like heart rate variability of connecting our breath, we can actually directly impact physiological parameters like blood pressure, which if we get those numbers down, then the medical doctors are happy because those numbers are correlated with cardiovascular events. But at the same time, then we can get into the idea of stress management too. It's again, we need another hour.
Yeah, we need that. Let's not crack that worm open.
I know.
Let's leave them wanting a little more. But yeah, heart rate variability is something that I was introduced to a couple, man, 5, 6, 7 years ago, through what was it called? Omega or something like that. It was like a wearable chest strap that you could wear and measure your HRV to start your day. And it was used at the time. The reason it caught my eye, back to soccer and Washington, Seattle Sounders had started using it as their means of measuring their players' readiness so that they could tailor the training program to each individual athlete. And when I heard that, I was just like, oh, this is the next thing. Like, this is it. So I really started to hone in on it. And then through Flow, with the Flow Genome Project, and then again, it came back really heavy with Revolution in Motion, and then even heavier now again with heart math and breathing, HRV, nervous system. We'll leave it at that.
TBD.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, unfortunately we're running short on time. I've got two more questions for you.
Cool.
Number one, how can people reach out to you if they want to learn more about you, maybe potentially working with you, but with the language of movement? What do they do?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the easiest ways, head to the website. It's there for a reason. So thelanguageofmovement.com. I'll plug that one more time. The easy way there, but Twitch is where I'm at. Currently, I'm getting my technology set up, but that's going to be in the new year, like 5 days a week for a couple hours, usually in the evening time here on the Pacific Coast. And then, email colinmovement@gmail.com. And also that's the same as my Instagram handle. So if you just want to head to Instagram, I'm not on there too much, but I'll be a little more active on there in the new year. So promoting all the stuff that I have going on. Because as you know, I don't talk about it much, which is why you didn't know about it. I'm kind of a silent mover. I don't like to talk about what I do too much. It's just when I come into contact with people as the universe brings to me,
Hmm.
it just comes up naturally. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, those would kind of be the main ones. So Colin Movement all over the board, and check out the Language of Movement on YouTube and website. So, and Twitch is also at Colin Movement, or twitch.tv/Colin Movement. So if it's not the Language of Movement, it's Colin Movement.
Cool.
So,
And I will put all those links, send those links to me, and I'll put them in the description below of this recording.
cool.
Last question of the day. What is your Hughes Moves health tip of the day?
Oh man, don't judge yourself. Just play.
That's a first one. That's a great one. Nice.
That's it.
Well, I
No
mean,
more.
yeah, nothing even needs to be
Don't
said
judge
about that.
yourself. Just play.
That's great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Colin, thank you for taking the time to talk to me, to
My
talk to my
pleasure.
viewers. This was great. We're gonna obviously have to do it again. There's so much more to talk
Yeah,
about.
please let me know. It was great to catch up, brother.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
gonna have to
anytime.
check out some of your Twitch streams too. I've personally never been on Twitch, so you'll be a good first person to
It's
to
a fun
experience.
platform, and it definitely community based. So it's pretty inviting once you log on. So
Nice, awesome, cool. Well, once more, thanks again. This is the Hughes Moves Spotlight with Colin Donohoo, and I'll catch you guys next time. Boom.